We're waiting on Dawn, I guess she'll post it.
In the morning, you see that coming on? Not doing a meeting no more.
Yeah, we came to watch No matter what, she's doing part of it.
I am not shooting Colonel B.
Okay, Rob, we're ready.
Okay. I would like to call this meeting to order and welcome everybody to the March 9th, 2022 Board of Zoning Adjustments hearing. Sarah, may I get a roll call, please?
Mike Arnold,
Here.
Heather Knight,
Here.
Rob Turney,
Here.
Landon Overfield,
Here.
Marcos Nicholas.
Here.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Before we get started, I would like to swear Mr. Nix in. Mr. Nix, do you promise to tell the truth?
I do.
Okay.
Meeting for RDM.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Nix, will you bring the first appeal to our attention, 3447, please?
Yes, Close of Appeal 3447 is submitted by First Christian Church for the property located at 830 South Green Street. Applicant is requesting a conditional use permit to install a freestanding sign to replace an existing sign which was destroyed by a vehicle pursuant to Article 10, Signs and Outdoor Advertising, and Article 17, Section 17.04, Residential Office District Requirements. Appendix A, Zoning Code of Ordinances of the City of Henderson, Kentucky. The property is zoned residential R2. All adjoining property owners have been notified, and we have had no calls concerning this appeal. Permanent freestanding signs are not permitted in residential zones, provided, however, that in the event a conditional use permit is approved by the BOZA board, a sign will be permitted in accordance with RO district standards. You can see the First Christian Church here on the screen here, and the existing sign that is currently there that was damaged by a drunken driver approximately, maybe a year ago, a little bit less. The original backlit church message sign was, like I mentioned, was damaged. The church, in reviewing the age of the existing sign, how it was built and the damage, would like to place a similar size sign on top of a new concrete foundation base. The old sign is sitting on the grass, supported by some posts in the ground. By placing the sign on a more substantial base and elevated off the ground approximately 12 to 18 inches, this would be easier for them to maintain, because currently the weeds grow up inside the existing framework and existing signage, which has created a lot of issues for them. The existing sign, like I said, it is a backlit sign, but maintenance on the bulbs and the weeds is a maintenance nightmare for them. So besides the addition of the concrete base, they are doing away with the backlit signage and simply want to use a ground-mounted lighting to shine up on the sign. That would keep the main light, which is really only one 30-watt bulb, focused on the sign, and would keep any residual light to a minimum. The church felt it was time to replace the sign, and could have without a conditional use if they simply replaced the existing facing on their existing sign. However, since the current non-conforming sign was going to be totally replaced with a fresh new look, with a new foundation and sign, the conditional use permit is required. So the applicant, in filling out their conditional use permit worksheet, states that the requested conditional use is justified because it is an essential use in that it identifies the church property by identifying the church name and location. The applicant further states that the conditions that would eliminate or minimize adverse effects of the proposed use in the zoning district are, number one, in case of fire, it identifies the property. Number two, it will meet the required setback. Number three, the sign will not block the line of sight for vehicle traffic. And four, the sign will only be lit by ground lighting. The staff has reviewed the request and forwarded the application of this appeal to the board for your consideration, action, and any additional conditions that you deem appropriate.
Mr. Nix, is the sign approximately going to be placed in the same place as the existing sign? And is it more or less the same size?
Yes, it is.
Does this board have any additional questions for Mr. Nix? Any additional questions? If there are no additional questions, I would ask that the applicant approach the podium or make themselves be known on the Zoom call. Please sign in with your name and address. Please state your name.
Name's Gail Myers.
Myers or Byers?
Myers, M-Y-E-R-S.
Oh, okay. Mr. Myers, do you promise to tell the truth?
Yes.
Thank you so much. Is there anything else that you would like to add that Mr. Nix didn't mention?
No, I've worked with Mr. Nick pretty well on this, and he pretty well got it all wrapped up right there.
Okay. Does this board have any questions for Mr. Myers? Does this board have any questions? If there are no questions for Mr. Myers, you may be seated if you like.
All right, thank you.
Is there anybody here to speak for or against Appeal 3447? Is there anybody here to speak for or against Appeal 3447? Sarah, can you tell if we have anybody on the Zoom call that might want to speak for or against 3447?
We don't.
Okay. If there is nobody here to speak for or against 3447, I'll close the open forum and ask for a motion.
I got a motion.
Thank
I
you.
move that we grant Appeal 3447 for conditional use permit to install a freestanding sign for the property located at 830 South Green with following conditions. Sign shouldn't have any lighting except external ground lighting. All lighting should not interfere with the neighbors or passing vehicles or obstruct the view of passing vehicles or emergency vehicles. Conditional use permit is for the current property owner, and that the evidence presented shows that the granting of the requested conditional use permit is justified because it is an essential use in that it allows the sign allows the church to be identified by name and location. And that the evidence presented shows that the granting of the conditional use would promote the public health, safety, and welfare by identifying the church in case of emergency. The sign will meet the required setback, sign will not block the line of sight, and will have only ground lighting.
Second.
Is there any further discussion about the motion among this board? If there is no further discussion, Sarah, I'll ask for a vote.
Mac,
Yes.
Heather,
Yes.
Landon, Landon,
Yes.
Marco.
Yes.
Mr. Myers, Appeal 3447 has been approved and granted in your favor. Thank you very much for your time. Mr. Nix, our next appeal, 3448, will you bring that to our attention, please?
Yes, Boza Appeal number 3448 is submitted by RDM Land LLC for the property located at 715 Second Street. The applicant is requesting a conditional use permit to allow multiple uses, businesses, but not more than 3 may be allowed in the same structure or building pursuant to Article 33, Section 33.06/3C, Appendix A, Zoning Code of Ordinances of the City of Henderson, Kentucky. The property is zoned Gateway Zone District. All adjoining property owners have been notified. I believe we did receive one phone call regarding this appeal. The Gateway District provides for a multiple of permitted uses and some conditional uses, of which allow multiple uses or businesses, but not more than 3 if this conditional use appeal is approved. It's our understanding that currently there is 1 business in the building with additional tenants planned. Any and all potential business would have to meet the permitted uses for this zoning district unless also approved as a conditional use. The new owners are in the process of making some renovations to improve the property. The applicant, in filling out their conditional use permit worksheet, states that the requested conditional use is justified because it's an essential use, in that the building with a conditional use permit would be a positive for the City of Henderson and will promote a clean and neat area. It will also be good in that it will house new and upcoming businesses. The applicant states that conditions that would eliminate or minimize adverse effects of the proposed use in the zoning district are, number 1, parking lot is located in the rear, provides for adequate off-street parking. Sarah, would you get us to this next section, please? On the screen. Here's the property from 2nd Street, and would you give the overall aerial view of it as well? Okay, thank you. Parking lot located in the rear provides adequate off-street parking. Number 2, existing building will provide flexibility and innovation on 2nd Street. Number 3, provides for harmonious mix and development standards compatible with 2nd Street. Number 4, it minimizes blight by renovations of an existing structure. And number 5, business hours will be normal for professional businesses. The staff has reviewed and recommend approval of the request. We forward it to you, the Boza Board, for your consideration, action, and any additional conditions that you deem appropriate.
Thank you, Mr. Nix. Mr. Nix, how many businesses can fit in that building? And what is the do you know what the anticipated number of businesses will be?
I do not, but the owner of the property is online, and you can ask them. But the conditional use, as stated, is for 3 businesses.
Okay. Does this board have any questions for Mr. Nix? Does this board have any questions for Mr. Nix? If there are no more questions for Mr. Nix, I will invite the applicant to make themselves be known. I believe the applicant is on the Zoom call.
I am.
Okay. Can you state your name and address, please?
Yes, Warren Moit, Henderson, Kentucky, 42420, Highway 5794, Highway 351 East.
Mr. Moit, do you promise to tell the truth?
Yes.
Mr. Moit, the application is identified for 3 businesses. Do you know how the building is set up? Is it set up for 3 businesses or more?
Yeah, it's actually set up for a total, you could have like 5 separate businesses in there. But I'm guessing the conditional use is only going to allow 3 of them. I didn't know. I didn't know what the restriction was for adding more. But you know, beggars can't be choosers either.
Okay, Mr. Nix, the circumstances of this application is strictly for up to 3 businesses. Is that correct?
That is correct, not more than 3.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
33, yeah,
Rob, it's Dawn, it's 3306, sub 3 only allows 3 with a conditional use, no more. Three
Okay.
businesses.
Mr. Moit, so this hearing today, is for, to allow you to have 3, businesses in the building.
Mhm.
And is that what you're, at this time, that's your expectations, right?
Yes. Is there another form to fill out where we could do additional businesses if the need were ever to arise? We're not looking to, we're not really looking for more than 3 right now, but I didn't know if there's a way, if it ever came present. It's a nice area, a lot of businesses, that require, 1 or 2 people to work at, would be ideal for this location.
Mr. Nix, are there
Yes,
future
sir.
provisions to allow, additional businesses in this building?
No, they're not. Unfortunately, it's limited to 3, and there's no other recourse from that currently.
Okay. Mr. Moit, I just needed you to understand that 3 businesses.
Yeah.
Code only allows us 3 businesses.
I got you.
Okay.
So, okay, I'm not gonna hold up the meeting. I'll take the 3 businesses today if everyone else approves of that.
Okay. With that said, does this board have any questions for Mr. Moit? Does this board have any questions for Mr. Moit? If there are no questions for Mr. Moit, Mr. Moit, if you want to be, if you can set aside now, I'm going to ask if there's anybody
Okay.
who would like to speak for or against Appeal 3448. Is there anybody who wants to speak for or against Appeal 3448? Sarah, do we have anybody on the Zoom call that has a remote desire to speak for or against 3448?
We are not showing anybody.
Okay. With that, I will close the open forum and ask for a motion, please.
Okay, I'll make the
I have
motion.
a motion.
Go ahead.
You got one, Landon? Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Ladies.
I move that we grant Appeal 3448 for conditional use permit to allow for multiple businesses for the property located at 715 Second Street with following conditions. Only 3 businesses will be allowed in the location. All businesses should follow the city codes and permitted uses. Conditional use permit is for the current property owner, and that the evidence presented shows that the granting of the requested conditional use permit is justified because it is essential use in that the building with the conditional use permit would be a positive for the city of Henderson and will promote a clean and neat area. It will also be a good location in that it will house new and upcoming businesses. And that the evidence presented shows that the granting of the conditional use would promote the public health, safety, and welfare by utilizing the current structure in Henderson, increasing the growth in the Gateway District, minimizing blight, and business will be conducted during normal business hours.
Second.
Thank you for the second. Is there any further discussion among this board concerning the motion of this appeal? If there is no further discussion, I'll ask for a vote for 3448, please.
Mac,
Yes.
Heather,
Yes.
Landon,
Yes.
Marcus.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody. Mr. Moit, Appeal 3448 has been approved as presented. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you guys very much.
You're very welcome. Mr. Nix, Appeal 3449. And let me back up. Mr. Moit, I think I said 3449 for you, but Appeal 3448 is your appeal, and that's what was approved. Mr. Nix, Appeal 3449, will you present that to us, please?
Yeah, just a moment. Let me give Sarah a chance to get back to her seat.
Oh, okay.
Loza Appeal number 3449 is submitted by Anthony G. and Mary Ann Ganella for the property located at 231 Hancock Street. The applicant is requesting a 6-foot front yard setback variance from South Elm Street to construct a detached garage pursuant to Article 27, Schedule A, Appendix A, zoning code of ordinances of the city of Henderson, Kentucky. The property is zoned R2, medium density residential district. Appropriate notices did go out to adjoining property owners, and we have received no inquiries with respect to this appeal. We go to the next slide, please, Sarah. Property in question is a corner lot that requires a front yard setback off of each street front. That setback is 25 feet. But please note that the city has a wide right-of-way along South Elm Street, and the property line sits back approximately 40 feet from the west edge of South Elm Street, just as a notifier. The variance worksheet provided by the owners state that there are special circumstances for this lot that make it different from other lots in the same zone, and that the existing utilities would prevent construction of the garage if not granted the variance due to location of above and below ground utilities. If you see the square box where the proposed garage is, if it was moved further to the west, it would sit over the top of underground utility lines, and that would be a really difficult situation to try to deal with, and it really would prevent that structure from being constructed. They also state that the strict application of provisions of the zoning ordinance imposes an unnecessary hardship on the applicant and deprives the applicant of reasonable use of the land because the lot was platted and built on prior to the adoption of the zoning ordinance. The existing, in this case, the new structure does not meet the current setbacks, and the proposed addition of this detached garage is a reasonable and expected use of the property. Special circumstances that they state in their variance worksheet states that the granting of variance will not affect the public health, safety, or welfare, in that the existing house and surrounding houses and garages are within the existing setbacks. Number two, the granting of the variance will not alter the essential character of the general vicinity, that again, the existing house and surrounding houses and garages are within the existing setbacks. Number three, the granting of the variance will not cause a hazard or nuisance to the public, in that the proposed structure will be 19 feet instead of at 25 feet from the right-of-way line, which in addition will be 59 plus feet from the existing roadway, so it's well off the street. Granting of variance will not allow an unreasonable circumvention of the zoning ordinance, in that the existing house and surrounding houses and garages are actually closer to the existing right-of-way. And the staff has reviewed the request, recommend approval, and submit this to the board for your consideration and action.
Mr. Nix, I missed whether or not you said that you had any calls for or against it.
We have not had any contact whatsoever regarding the appeal request.
Okay,
No phone calls.
thank you. Does this board have any questions for Mr. Nix? Does this board have any questions for Mr. Nix? If there are none, I will ask the applicant to either approach the podium or make themselves be known on the Zoom call. Please sign in with your name and address. Please state your name.
My name is Anthony Ganella.
Mr. Ganella, do you promise to tell the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Ganella, is there anything that you would like to add to what Ray has already?
No, he's covered everything that I'm interested in. I just want to put an attached garage, and it's, like I said, there's a 6-foot variance I'm looking for. That's about it.
Oh, okay, thank you. Does this board have any questions for Mr. Ganella? Mr. Ganella, do you know,
Attached.
Okay, I thought that's. Go ahead, Rob.
Mr. Ganella, one of the things that we look at from our board perspective is to make sure that any of the drainage that comes off your new building is not directed to or flowing across your neighbor's property. At this, is the design of your new garage such that that won't happen?
Yes, sir. It'll happen. It'll drain on my property.
Okay. Thank you very much. Again, does this board have any questions for Mr. Ganella? Any questions for Mr. Ganella?
I got a question, Rob.
Okay.
Is it a two-story garage or a one-story garage?
I think it's gonna have a little loft in it, but I don't have the plan yet. I was gonna get the variance before we got the plans together. The builder's waiting for me to pass this, and I think there's gonna be a small loft for storage in there.
Okay.
It's approximately 24 by 26.
Okay. Are there any other questions for Mr. Ganella? Any other questions? If there are no other questions for Mr. Ganella, you may be seated. And is there anybody here to speak for or against Appeal 3449? Is there anybody here to speak for or against Appeal 3449? Sarah, is there anybody on our Zoom call that would like to be heard?
We don't have anybody on Zoom.
Oh, okay. Is that Mr. Stroud in the back?
Yes.
How you
I figured
doing,
he
John?
would
Good
be
to
the
see you.
design.
Good, Rob, how are you?
Doing very well. May I get a motion on Appeal 3449, please?
I have a motion.
Thank you.
I move that we grant Appeal 3449 for a 6-foot front yard setback variance on South Elm Street to construct a detached garage for the property located at 231 Hancock Street with following conditions. All drainage should be directed away from the neighbors and gutter system installed on the additional building. The garage should match or tie in to the current aesthetics of the current home and neighborhood. Construction site be maintained with safety in mind and conducted during normal business hours. These findings are based on the fact that the lot was platted and built on prior to the adoption of the zoning ordinance. And the existing structure, do I have to say that part since there's not an existing structure? Okay. And that the evidence presented shows that the granting of this appeal will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare, and that the existing house and surrounding houses and garages are within the existing setbacks, will not alter the essential character of the general vicinity, and the existing house and surrounding houses and garages are within the existing setback, will not cause a hazard or nuisance to the public, and that the proposed structure will be 19 feet instead of 25 feet from the right-of-way, and will be 59 feet from the existing roadway, and will not allow an unreasonable circumvention of the requirements of the zoning regulations, and that the existing homes and garages are actually closer to the existing right-of-way.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion among this board concerning the motion? Any further discussion among this board concerning the motion? If there is none, I'll ask for a vote, please.
Mike,
Yes.
Heather,
Yes.
Landon,
Yes.
Marcus.
Yes.
Mr. Ganella, Appeal 3449 has been granted in your favor. Thank you very much for your time. The next item on the agenda of old business, we have a conditional use permit review. Do we still have that on the agenda, Ray?
Yeah, it's on the agenda, and we can review it very briefly.
Okay.
We had two properties that their conditional use had expired since it's been longer than a year since they actually had activated it. And so we made notice to the applicants of those that this conditional use was going away, and they had an opportunity to either, sign off on an affidavit, letters did go out to them, or they could come here and, have some verbiage here with the, Board of Zoning and Adjustment. So, those two properties were 1619 South Green Street was a towing business, and the other one was, 2813 Green River Road, a repair business at a home business. Don, I don't know, has your office received any signed affidavits
We have
regarding
not.
either one of those?
No, we have not.
I think we've got representatives from both of those properties, here, Mr. Nance, and,
Mr. Nance, would you approach the podium, please? Mr. Nance, if you'll sign in with your name and address, please. Mr. Nance, do you promise to tell the truth?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. What would you like to add to Mr. Nix's testimony?
Well, I had met all the conditions for the permit except for getting the fence constructed. And that's been kind of hard for me to get done. And I talked to Ray, last week, and we discussed me shorting and enclosing a smaller area of my business. So I was able to get the fence and everything constructed over the weekend. So I actually took a picture from the neighbor behind me from his viewpoint so that you can see that it's all enclosed. And believe that was all the other criteria that I needed to meet.
Okay. Would you mind, can you give that picture to us and present it to Sarah so it's part of testimony?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Nix, have you seen the picture?
no, I have not.
You want to look at it?
You can-
Mr. Nix, by your assessment, do you believe the pic?
Rob,
Yes.
hold on just a sec. Don stepped out to ask him if they could put this picture up.
Yeah,
Oh, thank you.
figure out a way other than us scanning it, taking a break, scanning it, and emailing it. So,
What I have observed and what's shown on the picture is an enclosing with privacy fence on the backside of the property, which was open at the time, back when the initial conditional use permit was, first issued, and that was one of the requirements, of the conditional use permit was to complete that enclosure and privacy. The conditional use permit, was issued back, September of 2020, so it's been over a year and a half.
So, Don, how do we do it if we're gonna allow him to keep it, or do we just make a motion on that?
I think that's his request is for the conditional use to continue,
Right.
and that would be his request, I believe, so.
Does he need to submit paperwork to you, Ray, or is it up to this board to make a motion and accept this to extend it another year? What do we do here?
No, I think once he's met the criteria and has actually, met the requirements, then he's good, for the duration of the time that he's operating a small repair
Okay, have we
business
met- has he met all the requirements of the permit?
Now he has, yes.
He has
Okay.
now, Rob.
Okay, so we've met everything. Okay,
Yes. What was the address, is that?
2813 Green River Road.
Do you want me to make a motion?
do we need a motion, Ray? If he's met the requirements, do we need a motion?
So this hearing is we were having a hearing to end the conditional use, but the conditional use extends now unless you all want to end it. So really, the question for you all is, do you all want to end the conditional use? If not, there's no action to be taken.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, so the motion would be either to accept the conditional use permit or deny the conditional use permit. Is that where we are?
No.
No, Don said we didn't have to make a motion unless we were wanting to end the conditional use.
Right.
Okay. Is there a motion to end the conditional use? Is there a motion to end the conditional use? If there is no motion to deny the conditional use will continue as originally issued. Mr. Nance, please, your conditional use stands as it was originally issued in September of 2020. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dawn, did we do that properly?
Yes.
She said
Okay.
yes.
Do nothing pretty good.
Mr. Nix, the other conditional use permit, do we have somebody to speak for on behalf of that conditional use permit?
I think Earl Brandon is here perhaps as the property manager for the property, I believe. Is that right, Earl? Are you here for that?
Yes.
Okay. That's at
Okay, well-
1619 South Green Street, and it was issued as a conditional use back in December of 2020 to operate a towing business with the Smith Arts.
Okay. Will the person who is representing that current appeal please approach the podium, sign in with your name and address, please?
My name is Earl Brandon. I'm with Property Management Services.
Mr. Brandon, do you promise to tell the truth?
Yes, I do.
Mr. Brandon, would you explain the status of where you are with complying with the permit?
I didn't apply for the permit. The tenant applied for the permit. I'm here to observe the meeting on behalf of the owner of the property.
Okay. What would you like to add?
I have no questions. I'm
Okay.
just here to see what the outcome of the meeting is.
He's just here just to report back to the owner what happened.
Okay, so the owner, Mr. Brandon, are you representing the owner?
We
Or
manage the
I'm
property
sorry,
for-
are you representing the tenant?
I am not, no, sir.
Okay. Is there, does anybody have any questions for Mr. Brandon? If not, Mr. Brandon, you may be seated. Is there,
Rob, this is
yes.
Dawn. We spoke with Chris Hopkins, who represented the applicant for the conditional use. And he indicated that the applicant had decided not to go forward with the towing business. And so but they did not supply an affidavit to us to that effect. but Chris Hopgood did indicate that Shane Smithhart, who was the applicant on this, was not going forward with a towing business. So I don't think
Okay.
that there'll be any objections to a motion to end the conditional use.
Okay. Well, Mr. Brandon, I'm sorry, I mistakenly assumed that you were representing the applicant, and it appears that the applicant is not here to be represented, nor do they want to continue with the application or the permit. So at this point, I will entertain a motion from somebody on this board to possibly retract, redact, or deny the application, whatever word. Dawn, what word should we use?
Terminate.
Okay.
Conditional use permit.
So would anybody like to make a motion to terminate the conditional use permit issued for this towing business?
So moved.
I'll make a motion. Go ahead.
May
You
I
can
have a
have
second?
Go ahead, Mac.
May I have a second?
Second.
Okay.
Second.
Sarah, may we get a vote?
Mac,
Yes.
Heather,
Yes.
Langdon, is Rob?
Yes.
Marcus,
Yes.
Thank you. Dawn, is that
Yes.
what we need to do?
Yes.
Okay, the motion has
sir.
been, the motion has been passed to terminate the conditional use permit issued to the towing company. That's it, I guess.
I make a motion to accept the meetings from last month. Guess I should have waited for Rob, actually.
May I get a second, please?
Second.
Sarah, can we get a vote?
okay, who seconded it?
Everybody.
Mac and Marcus.
Mac,
Yes.
Heather,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Landon,
Yes.
Marcus.
Yes.
Is there any other board to come before, any other business to come before this board this evening? Any other business to come before this board this evening? If there is no other business, I would like a
I'll make
motion.
a statement here, Rob.
Okay.
Ray has a statement.
This is my last official Board of Zoning Adjustment meeting, and be turning the reins over to Mr. Steve Davis from our office, who will do an excellent job. It's been a pleasure to work with you all for the last few years, and wish you all the best.
For your service, Ray.
So,
Thanks,
Mr.
Ray,
Nix,
thanks. You've done a
Mr.
great
Nix?
job, Ray.
Mr. Nix, if I see you down at 737 Second Street, I'll have a tip of the hat for you.
You
And,
have to be
Mr.
here,
Davis,
Rob.
pardon me?
You have to be here.
That's right.
Oh,
You can't
I
have
will
palm
be.
trees in the background.
I will be. Mr. Davis, welcome. We look forward to working with you next month.
Yes, sir.
So Ray, it's been a pleasure. I've had such a good time with you on this, working with us. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
On that towing thing, how long is it gonna take him to move all that stuff out? Well,